Why did you become who you were?
Why did I become who I was?
Why would you want to do this? You know?
I just loved hip hop growing up as a kid. I just, you know, it was like it spoke to me more than any other music I had ever heard before, you know. First I was a fan of the music, you know what I'm saying, before I even thought about rapping. LL Cool J was the one who made me like first start writing rhymes. And I was like 12, 13 maybe. And it sucked, you know, I wasn't good, but like I had to keep practicing and practicing and practicing. I gave it up for a little while, then I started again back when I was like 15 and started being able to kind of put songs together. Once I found out I was decent at something, I just kind of focused and just, you know, went for it.
Imagine being so broke that you had to choose between electricity and food. Imagine being beaten so badly in school that you fell into a coma for 10 days. Imagine being rejected by every record label in your city, told you'll never make it because of how you look. Now imagine overcoming all of that to become the best-selling artist of an entire generation. This isn't fiction. This is the raw, unfiltered story of Marshall Mathers, Eminem, the man who redefined what it means to rise from nothing. They said he'd fail. They said white boys can't rap. They said his music was too controversial, too honest, too real. But Eminem didn't just prove them wrong. He shattered every expectation and rewrote the rules of an entire industry. Today, we dive deep into the extraordinary journey of a man who turned pain into poetry and rejection into revolution. You think you know Eminem's story. Think again. Before the Grammy Awards, before selling over 220 million records worldwide, before becoming one of the most respected lyricists in hip-hop history, Marshall Bruce Mathers III was just another kid trying to survive in the unforgiving landscape of Detroit's 8 Mile Road. Born on October 17, 1972, in St. Joseph, Missouri, Eminem's life was marked by instability from the very beginning. His father abandoned the family when he was just a baby, leaving his mother Debbie to raise him alone. They moved constantly, bouncing between Missouri and Michigan, never settling long enough to call any place home. Growing up in predominantly black neighborhoods as one of the few white kids, young Marshall became an easy target. The bullying was relentless and brutal. In one particularly horrific incident at age 9, he was beaten so severely by a school bully named D'Angelo Bailey that he spent 10 days in a coma. The experience would later inspire his track Brain Damage, where he transformed this trauma into razor-sharp lyrics about his childhood tormentor. Way before my baby daughter Haley, I was harassed daily by this fat kid named D'Angelo Bailey, an 8th grader who acted obnoxious because his father boxes, so every day he'd shove me in the lockers. Education was never Eminem's strong suit, not because he lacked intelligence, but because survival took priority. He failed the 9th grade 3 times before eventually dropping out at 17. But there was one subject that captivated him: words. Marshall would spend hours studying the dictionary, absorbing new vocabulary, developing the linguistic arsenal that would one day make him unstoppable. Life at home was no sanctuary either. His relationship with his mother was turbulent at best, toxic at worst. Debbie Mathers struggled with substance abuse and, according to Eminem, would often take prescription drugs and change her behavior drastically. In his controversial track, Cleaning Out My Closet, he would later rap, "Witness your mama popping prescription pills in the kitchen, bitchin' that someone's always going through her purse and shit's missing." Poverty was a constant companion. Sometimes the electricity would be shut off for weeks. Sometimes there wasn't enough food. The family would move between trailer parks and low-income housing projects, chased by eviction notices and unpaid bills. But amidst this chaos, Marshall found his escape: rap music. At 14, he adopted the stage name Eminem, later stylized as Eminem, derived from his initials. He would skip school to participate in rap battles at the Osborne High School lunchroom. These informal competitions became his training ground, where he honed his craft among Detroit's underground hip-hop scene. When most teenagers were worrying about prom dates, Eminem was struggling to find his place in a music genre dominated by black artists. He faced immediate skepticism and rejection. White rappers were largely considered novelties, or worse, cultural appropriators. But Marshall wasn't interested in gimmicks. He was dead serious about hip-hop. By his late teens, Eminem was working minimum wage jobs to support himself while pursuing music on the side. He washed the dishes at Gilbert's Lodge restaurant for $5.50 an hour, coming home with hands raw from cleaning chemicals, only to stay up writing lyrics deep into the night. His first serious foray into the music industry came with the formation of Soul Intent in 1995, a group that gave him his first taste of underground recognition. But it was his debut solo album, Infinite, released in 1996, that he hoped would be his breakthrough. It wasn't. The album sold barely 1,000 copies. Critics dismissed him as a pale imitation of established rappers like Nas and AZ. The rejection cut deep, pushing Eminem into a dark period of depression and self-doubt. He was 23 years old, working dead-end jobs, with a baby daughter to support after the birth of Haley Jade in December 1995. I was a nobody. People would say, "Get a real job." What are you doing? You're not going to make it. You're white. There's never been a white rapper to make it, Eminem later recalled. The pressure nearly broke him. In 1997, after the commercial failure of Infinite and facing increasing financial struggles, Eminem attempted suicide by overdosing on Tylenol. Fortunately, he survived. But the incident marked his lowest point. It was then that he created the alter ego that would change everything. Slim Shady. Slim Shady wasn't just a character. He was Eminem's uninhibited ID, violent, controversial, and darkly humorous. Through this persona, Marshall could channel all his rage, frustration, and defiance. The result was the Slim Shady EP, released independently in 1997. This raw, unfiltered collection of tracks caught the attention of hip-hop magazine The Source, which featured Eminem in their unsigned hype column. More importantly, a copy of the EP made its way to Dr. Dre, the legendary producer and founder of Aftermath Entertainment. The moment when Dr. Dre first heard Eminem's music has become hip-hop lore. As Dre himself recounted, "I was like, what the fuck? And who the fuck is that?" I called Jimmy Iovine, Interscope Records co-founder. I said, "Find him. Now." Many industry executives were skeptical about signing a white rapper, but Dre's instincts were unwavering. "I don't care if you're purple. If you can kick it, I'm working with you," he famously stated. When they finally met, the chemistry was immediate. They recorded My Name Is on their first day in the studio together, a track that would later become Eminem's breakthrough hit. Dre signed Eminem to Aftermath Entertainment, and together they began work on the Slim Shady LP. Released in February 1999, the Slim Shady LP was a commercial and critical explosion. It debuted at number 2 on the Billboard 200 chart and went on to sell over 4 million copies in the United States alone. The lead single, My Name Is, introduced Eminem's provocative alter ego to the mainstream, while tracks like Role Model and Guilty Conscience showcased his technical skill and dark humor. Critics were stunned by his complex rhyme schemes, narrative ability, and fearless approach to controversial subjects. The album won a Grammy Award for Best Rap Album, and suddenly, the white kid from Detroit, who couldn't sell 1,000 copies of his debut, was the most talked about artist in music. But fame brought its own challenges. Eminem's lyrics drew fierce criticism for their violent content and use of homophobic language. Parent groups and media watchdogs called for boycotts of his music. The criticism only intensified with his next album. The Marshall Mathers LP, released in May 2000, was an even bigger phenomenon. It sold 1.76 million copies in its first week, still one of the fastest-selling solo albums in US history. Tracks like The Real Slim Shady and A Stan, featuring a haunting chorus from Dido, showcased Eminem's evolution as both a commercial hitmaker and a storyteller of uncommon depth. Stan, in particular, demonstrated his narrative genius, telling the story of an obsessive fan through a series of increasingly disturbed letters. The track was so culturally significant that the word "stan" is now in the Oxford English Dictionary, defined as an overzealous or obsessive fan. Yet as his career soared, Eminem's personal life was spiraling. His tumultuous relationship with Kim Scott, Haley's mother, became tabloid fodder. They married in 1999, divorced in 2001, remarried in January 2006, and filed for divorce again just 3 months later. Their volatile relationship inspired some of his most controversial and emotional tracks, including Kim and 97 Bonnie and Clyde. Eminem was also battling addiction. What began as recreational use of prescription medications like Vicodin, Valium, and Ambien escalated into full-blown dependency. At his lowest point, he was taking up to 60 Valium and 30 Vicodin per day. "The doctors told me I'd done the equivalent of 4 bags of heroin," he later revealed about a 2007 overdose that nearly killed him. "They said I was about 2 hours from dying." The pressures of fame, personal demons, and substance abuse led to a creative slump. His 2004 album Encore and 2009's Relapse received mixed reviews, with critics suggesting he had lost his edge. Some wondered if Eminem's moment had passed, if he had become another casualty of the music industry's punishing cycle of elevation and destruction. But Marshall Mathers had been underestimated before. On April 20th, 2008, Eminem achieved 12 months of sobriety after years of addiction. This milestone marked the beginning of his remarkable comeback. Working with his longtime friend and producer Dr. Dre, he began creating Recovery, an album that would live up to its name. Released in June 2010, Recovery was precisely that, a musical document of Eminem's journey back from the brink, both personally and professionally. The album debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200 chart and became the best-selling album of 2010 worldwide, with over 5.7 million copies sold. Tracks like Not Afraid and Love the Way You Lie, featuring Rihanna, showcased a more mature, introspective Eminem. He was still technically brilliant, still able to bend words and phrases with unmatched dexterity, but now there was a new dimension to his work, the wisdom of survival. In the years that followed, Eminem solidified his legacy with albums like The Marshall Mathers LP2, 2013, Revival, 2017, Kamikaze, 2018, and Music to be Murdered By, 2020. Each release demonstrated his continued relevance and evolution as an artist. His impact extends far beyond his own discography. Through his label Shady Records, he has helped launch the careers of artists like 50 Cent, D12, and Obi Trice. His semi-autobiographical film, 8 Mile, 2002, was both a critical and commercial success, with its soundtrack spawning the Oscar-winning song Lose Yourself, the first hip-hop track to win an Academy Award for Best Original Song. Today, Eminem stands as one of music's undisputed legends. He has sold over 220 million records worldwide, making him among the best-selling music artists of all time. He has 15 Grammy Awards, an Academy Award, and countless other accolades. Billboard named him the Artist of the Decade for the 2000s, while Rolling Stone ranked him among the 100 greatest artists of all time. But statistics and accolades only tell part of the story. What makes Eminem's journey so remarkable is not just that he overcame obstacles, it's the nature of those obstacles and how completely they were meant to disqualify him from the world he now dominates. Eminem didn't just succeed in hip-hop, he succeeded in a cultural space where everything about him, his race, his background, his appearance, was initially considered a liability. He didn't have connections. He didn't have money. For most of his early life, he didn't even have stability. What he had was an unshakable self-belief and a relentless work ethic. What he had was pain, and the rare ability to transform that pain into art that resonates with millions. His technical skills are undeniable. His manipulation of rhythm, his internal rhyme schemes, his ability to bend words to fit his flow. These are aspects of his craft that even his harshest critics acknowledge as exceptional. Fellow rapper Rakim, widely considered one of the greatest MCs of all time, praised Eminem's scientific approach to rhyming, while Pharaoh Ahimonk called him a scientist of words. But what truly separates Eminem is his authenticity. In an industry often criticized for manufactured personas, Marshall Mathers has always been unflinchingly honest, sometimes brutally so. He has exposed his vulnerabilities, confronted his demons, and documented his failures with the same intensity that he celebrates his triumphs. This transparency has created a profound connection with his audience. For millions of fans, Eminem isn't just an artist they admire. He's proof that your circumstances don't define your potential. His story resonates because it's fundamentally human. The story of someone who had every reason to quit, but found the strength to continue. "Success is my only option, failure's not," he declared in Lose Yourself, a line that encapsulates his approach to both music and life. As we reflect on Eminem's journey from the trailer parks of Detroit to the pinnacle of global music, perhaps the most remarkable aspect is how unlikely it all seemed at the start. A white rapper with no connections, no money, and seemingly no chance, now mentioned alongside the greatest artists in hip-hop history. His legacy is complex and sometimes contradictory. He has been criticized for misogynistic and homophobic lyrics, yet he has also shown growth and reflection on these issues over time. He has been dismissed as a novelty, yet his influence on hip-hop's language and technical boundaries is undeniable. He has been written off multiple times, yet has consistently reinvented himself and remained relevant across 3 decades in a notoriously fickle industry. Perhaps most importantly, Eminem's story reminds us that our greatest power often lies in the very things that make us different. The aspects of his identity that were initially seen as obstacles became the foundation of his unique voice. He didn't succeed despite being an outsider. In many ways, he succeeded because of it. For anyone facing rejection, for anyone being told they don't belong, for anyone struggling against circumstances that seem insurmountable, Eminem's journey offers this powerful truth. Sometimes the world's no is just the beginning of your story, not the end. As he continues to evolve as an artist and a person, Eminem remains a testament to resilience, to the power of words, and to the enduring truth that our backgrounds may shape us, but they need not define us. In his own words, "You can do anything you set your mind to." If Eminem's story of persistence, resilience, and defying all odds has inspired you, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now for more powerful stories of transformation on StoVibe. We bring you the raw, unfiltered journeys of people who changed their lives against impossible circumstances. Don't miss a single episode. Subscribe now, hit that notification bell, and join our community of dreamers and doers who refuse to accept limitation. Remember, just like Eminem proved, your past doesn't determine your future. Your story of breakthrough starts today.